So I'm just going to read this straight through because I think it's fucking brilliant. Hopefully it's less than 30 minutes. It's from Québécois Libre. Rousseau's General Will and Well-Ordered Society. Dr. Edwin W. Youngkins, Professor, Jesuit University, Capitalism, Commerce, whatever. Montreal, 2005. This is the best explanation that I've ever seen, sort of a full picture of who Jean-Jacques Rousseau is. I don't necessarily agree with every bit of it, but I think that the parameters are pretty good. They're pretty sound. Okay, so let's just reading it, and you could read it yourself if you know how to fucking read, but you assholes really need someone to explain shit to you. So the belief that man by nature is good was espoused by the French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, 1712 to 1778. He believed that people in the state of nature were innocent and at their best, and that they were corrupted by the unnaturalness of civilization. In the state of nature, people lived entirely for themselves, possessed in absolute independence, and were content. According to Rousseau, in the state of nature, people tended to be isolated. War was absent, and their desires were minimal and circumscribed, commiserate with their basic survival needs. People did not have the drive to acquire more possessions. There was plenty to go around, an absence of reliance on others, and no real need for extensive social interaction. However, there did exist an unreflective sympathy and general compassion towards others that was indiscriminate and not based on merits. In the state of nature, egoism was absent and compassion was present. Rousseau saw compassion for the undeserving in particular, and for mankind in general, to be the greatest of virtues. Again, Rousseau saw compassion for the undeserving in particular, and for mankind in general to be the greatest of virtues. He regarded contempt of another, which could lead to hurt feelings, as a vice, and as always bad. Contempt for another, it could lead to hurt feelings. It was a vice. It's always bad. Contempt for others? Jesus Christ, that's what Conan O'Brien has made his entire fucking career. Louis C.K. has made his entire fucking career on contempt for others. Jean-Jacques Rousseau wanted no one's feelings to be hurt. He felt that a proper society had no place for blame, criticism, judgment, comparison with others, and the distinction of worth among men. He said it was wrong to recognize distinctions because this makes people unequal. It was worse to be affronted than to be injured. What mattered to Rousseau was a person's good intentions rather than his achievements or outer appearance. So, you know, I don't know about all those things. I do see that, you know, the no one's feelings to be hurt. We never hurt the monarch's feelings, the cops' feelings, right? Those assholes, they don't ever get their feelings hurt. If they get their feelings hurt, if you say, hey, cop, you're a shithead, you little piece of shit bitch. Oh, well, that, you just call out his manhood. It's like when black people used to look white people in the eye. How dare you look me in the eye, boy? You look down when I walk by. But that isn't what I was actually wanting to point out. Let's see. I'm going to just read again, and then when it comes back to me. In the state of nature, egoism was absent and compassion was present. Rousseau saw compassion for the undeserving in particular, and for mankind in general to be the greatest of virtues. To love the undeserving, to love the homeless, the lazy, the incompetent, the criminal, to love even innocent people. He's saying the undeserving. If you could love the criminal, then you should be able to love the innocent as well. The children, he regarded contempt for another. So love everybody and have contempt for no one. He's saying that's the noble savage. That's how we were in the state of nature. We had these small bands of kinship, these families, and we looked after one another, and we were able to survive because of cooperation. We cared about ourselves, we cared about the whole group, and therefore we tried to do better. Okay. Now, eventually, we're going to see that civil society is the fucking problem. And it started out with private property. When someone said, this shit is mine, and then everybody else believed it, that's the beginning of inequality. Jean-Jacques Rousseau proclaimed the natural goodness of man and believed that one man by nature is just as good as any other. For Rousseau, a man could be just without virtue and good without effort. I don't know if all that's true, but according to Rousseau, man in the state of nature was free, wise, and good, and the laws of nature were benevolent. It follows that it was civilization that enslaved and corrupted man and made him unnatural. Machine minds with machine hearts. Because in the order of nature, all men were equal. It also follows that distinction and differentiation among men are the products of culture and civilization. So nature says we're all equal. Distinction and differentiation are the products of so-called civilization and culture. Because man is by nature a saint, it must be the corrupting influence of society that is responsible for the misconduct of the individual. Corruption by civilization, the origin of inequality. The fundamental problem for Rousseau is not nature or man, but instead his social institutions. Rousseau's view is that society corrupts the pure individual, arguing that men are not inherently constrained by human nature. Rousseau claims that men are limited and corrupted by social arrangements, conceiving of freedom as an absolute independent of any natural limitations. Jean-Jacques Rousseau disavows the world of nature and its inherent laws, constraints, and regulations. Rousseau held that reason had its opportunity, but had failed, claiming that the act of reflection is contrary to nature. Rousseau asserts that man's natural goodness has been depraved by the progress he has made and the knowledge he has acquired. He proceeded to attack the age of reason by emphasizing feeling, the opposite of reason, as the key to reality and the future. His thought thereby foreshadowed and gave impetus to the Romantic movement. No fucking way. Then when he's trying to say that Rousseau was he started the Romantic movement, perhaps he is pointing out that he gives a primacy. He says this in the next sentence. Rousseau assigned a primacy to instinct, emotion, intuition, feelings, passion. That's all true. Absolutely true. He believed that these could provide better insights into what is good and real than could reason. That could also be true, too. But how did he convey that? He wrote it down, and he was logical about it. He used logic and reason to point out the reason why he put a primacy, to say that instinct, emotion, intuition, feelings, and passion should come first. Those are the priorities. That's who we are. In fact, that's Zamyatin's we. He also said, Yevgeny Zamyatin, he says in an ordered, perfect, scientific, most efficient, and, society, scientifically structured society, that it could be bland. And machines produce dead things. And in order for something to be living, you might make errors. And you need that type of, those errors. Yeah, for humanity, for us to interact, but if we're all fucking making errors and fucking up, calculator says this much times this much is how much it is. So if I say 25 times 25 is 42, then, I'm a fucking human, and so that's romantic, right? My instincts, 25 times 25, 42. That's fucking wrong, okay? So, I don't see them actually being contradicting, but let's carry on. Okay, so Rousseau thus minimized reason and differences in the moral worth of individuals. He failed to realize that freedom is meaningless in the absence of reason. He did not grasp that reason connects the moral subject to the world of values. I don't know if I believe any of that. Okay, so Rousseau observed that although life was peaceful in the state of nature, people were unfulfilled. They needed to interact in order to find actualization. Evil, greed, selfishness emerged as human society began to develop. As people formed social institutions, they developed vices. One such institution was private property that encouraged avarice, greed, and self-interest. Self-interest, man, this fucker don't really like Rousseau. So, private property. Rousseau viewed private property as a destructive, impulsive, egotistical institution that rewarded greed and luck. Civil society thus was born when people began fencing off their property, claiming that it was theirs and finding that other people agreed with them. This is, Russell Brand points out, when it comes to inequality, you have monkeys. You know, every time one monkey did something good, he was given a piece of chocolate, and every time the other monkey did something good, he was just given, like, I don't know, a potato. And eventually, after the third time of getting a fucking potato, and the other monkey got a piece of chocolate, that other, the inequality, the monkey that was doing the same work but not getting the same rewards, freaked the fuck out, started getting pissed off. And, so that's inherent in inequality. Why should one have so much and others have so little? So that's what he says, that civil society began when people fenced off their property, claiming it was theirs, and then other people agreed with them. Depravity is due to the corruption of man's essence by civilization. For Rousseau, civil society resulted from the degeneration of a basically good state of nature. Man's problems arose because of civil society. He believed that the state of nature changed because it was internally unstable. All right, I'm going to read all that because I didn't. Depravity is due to the corruption of man's essence by civilization. For Rousseau, civil society resulted from the degeneration of a basically good state of nature. Noble savage, we're good. Civil society, private property, inequality, now we're bad. Because all you want to do is acquire more and more shit. It's not about cooperation. It's not about working together. It's all about you, getting you, more stuff for you, fuck everybody else. So, for example, because talents were not distributed equally among persons, the balance that existed in the state of nature was disturbed, and with inequality came conflicting interests. The more talented, able, intelligent people brought about advances in science, technology, commerce, and so on. Because people simply are born with certain natural endowments, a person cannot be praised for having talent or blamed for not having it. I don't know if he says any of this either. Rousseau saw talent as naturally leading to achievement. Inequality developed as some people produced more and earned more, which doesn't have to do with talent. He failed to acknowledge the importance of motivation, industry, and volitional use of one's reason and other potentialities. I do kind of see that the engine of capitalism has been stronger than the engine of communism, and then Ayn Rand has a really good critique or really good defense of dog-eat-dog capitalism and private property. All those things being true, the idea is sort of Marxist. To each according to their means and their needs, whatever. Everybody according to their means, everybody according to their needs. So you have your needs met, and what you can achieve is what you can achieve. So the idea that we can do better and that there should be a friendly competitive spirit, I do not disagree with. But the competitive spirit to where some of us have life and others have death, some of us sink or swim, not in terms of success and failure, but in terms of whether you live or you die. Sorry, Africa, your kids starve to death. Why? Because we're all a bunch of fucking capitalistic fucking assholes who only want to take shit from others and keep it for ourselves. That's why everybody in Africa, or the children in Africa, have to die. That's why homeless people on the street have to starve. That's why war, no matter who we declare it against, is okay, because it's us versus them. And I don't agree with a lot of that. So the perspective of many of today's environmentalists, a balance. I think there's a balance for all this. So he's going to point out environmentalists, and I never consider myself environmentalist, but I do think we need to return to a state of nature and to recapture that which is good in us. And because, Rousseau believes in the general will, and so is that his own will he's trying to impose? The idea of the general will is what he wants to impose, but he wants to impose the general will of nature. So he's saying, give a shit about each other, give a shit about, be cooperative, don't fuck over other people, and I'm going to force you to give a shit. Excuse me. The perspective of many of today's environmentalists can be traced back to Rousseau, who believed that the more men deviated from the state of nature, the worse off they would be espousing the belief that all degenerates in man's hands. Rousseau taught that men would be free, wise, and good in the state of nature, and that instinct and emotion, when not distorted by the unnatural limitations of civilization, are nature's voices and instructions to the good life. Rousseau's noble savage stands in direct opposition to the man of culture. People were no longer isolated and began to depend on each other. Culture is just about creating something. So noble savages, make their food, make their whatever. They do things, and that's culture too. So whatever. People were no longer isolated and began to depend on each other. Those who just happened to have talents create new products, and the desire for them. Buyers and sellers depend on each other, but these dependencies are unequal because of the existence of a pyramid of ability. Rousseau contends that as a result, the talented acquire property and become ambitious. All included, those without talent become competitive, rivalrous, jealous, power-hungry, prestige-seeking, and desirous for superiority over others. If that's not America, I don't know what the fuck is. So even the lowly nobodies want some type of superiority over others. Prestige, power-hungry, jealous, rivalrous, competitive. Even the nobodies. Even the fucking, not the rich or the kings and queens and the mayors and governors, the dumb, the stupid, the destitute, they want to feel some power over others. And that's fuck, if that's not, that is, that's civil society, and it is a state of war amongst us. So let's keep going. The civil society transforms men from isolated beings with limited wants into the warlike creatures found in a Hobbesian state of nature. For Rousseau, civil society is a state of war. Rousseau maintains that people did not have the right to rise above subsistence without everyone's consent, everybody's consent. Everything changed as civil society developed, but permission was not given for things to change. He contends that it is wrong to change the condition of all without asking. Rousseau is distressed that some people become relatively poor without having lost anything. Not only are their feelings hurt, their right to stagnate has been violated. The poor, weak, and indolent do not want to change, but things around them change, forcing them to steal or receive subsistence from the rich. Okay. Rousseau thought private property to be the source of social ills. He considered that private ownership of property tended to corrupt men and destroy their character, and regarded the man without property, i.e. the noble savage, to be the freest. Although he did not actually support the abolition of private property, he believed that private property should be minimal, should be distributed equally among the members of the society. Rousseau anticipated the need for the state to minimize private property. He wanted the property of the state to be as great and powerful as possible, and that of the citizens to be as small and weak as possible. With private property being so limited, the state would need to apply very little force in order to lead the people. See, the idea of the general will is at the heart of Rousseau's philosophy. The general will is not the will of the majority, rather it is the will of the political organism that he sees as an entity with a life of its own. The political entity was everybody. So how do we get everybody in on a decision? Well, direct democracy is the only fucking way to do that. That's the only fucking way. I essentially agree with everything they're saying, but they're going to say, well, they couldn't do direct democracy, so you have to have some sort of representative democracy. And then once you have representative, then you do have some elites who draws up the law, and then the people vote on the different language of the law, even though they're not the ones who write it. Rousseau says that it is impossible to go back to the state of primitive natural man. He says that men need to be governed as they now are, and that any future change in human nature will come later as a result of re-education to indoctrinate individuals to believe that the public interest is their personal interest. See, this is where it gets really confusing. But I'm just going to read it. Okay, a new social contract. Rousseau advocates a new corrective social contract as a blueprint through which a proper society can be built. He says that we should seek unanimous agreement with respect to a new social contract that eliminates the problem of dependence on one another while permitting each person to obey only himself and to remain as free as before. This can be accomplished through total alienation of each associate to the whole community. He calls for a total merger in which each individual gives up his right to control his life in exchange for an equal voice in setting the ground rules of society. Rousseau appeals to people to surrender their individual rights to a new moral and collective body with one will. This is his sort of theory of government, okay? So his theory of the individual versus his theory of government are kind of two different things. And when it comes to on education, how we're supposed to educate our children, I don't see really any of this. This almost seems like he's defending the kings and queens who's paying him, or the powers that be, which is kind of fucked up because the powers that be hated him, when he's like totally defending their power and the power of the state, if we're to believe, you know, this asshole. The public person formed by a social contract, the republic, has a will he calls the general will. What it wills, the republic, is the true interest of what everyone wants, whether they realize it or not. When you're forced to obey it, you're really obeying yourself. The true and free you is the individual is part of the collective whole. According to Rousseau's theory of social contract, people leave an anarchic state of nature by voluntarily transferring their personal rights to the community in return for security of life and property. He argues that people should form a society to which they would completely surrender themselves. By giving up their rights, they actually create a new entity in the form of a public person that would be directed by a general will. When people join the community, they are voluntarily agreeing to comply with the general will of the community. The general will. This goes to the heart of his philosophy. It's not supposedly the majority, it's the political organism. The general will is an additional will, somehow distinct from and other than any individual will or group of individual wills. The general will is by some means endowed with goodness and wisdom, surpassing the beneficence and wisdom of any person or collection of persons. Society is coordinated and unified by the general will. Rousseau believed that this general will actually exists and that it demands the unqualified obedience of every individual. He held that there is only one general will, and consequently only one supreme good and a single overriding goal toward which a community must aim. The general will is always a force of the good and the just. It is independent, totally sovereign, infallible, and inviolable. The result is that all powers, persons, and their rights are under the control and direction of the entire community. This means that no one can do anything without the consent of all.